Hello everyone, welcome back to the FPL Wire. This is Pras and this is my team selection video for Gameweek 17. And let's go back to how I did this week. We have an interesting week coming up where we have 3 deadlines. I will try as per to come back to you as soon as the games finish on a Sunday, and then we'll see when we do it on the midweek. So interesting week coming up. Luckily I'm not traveling, so I'll be in London, so I will have time to do the videos. So looking forward to doing them and catching up on a lot of football. Let's go to my week. So game week 16 was a very, very tiny green arrow. So basically, as people would know, they changed the bonuses basically on a Sunday night, or actually Monday night after the Bournemouth game. And I was on a red arrow by 1 point, and then Palmer gets his extra bonus, so I get obviously 2 extra points, and so that basically took me to a very small green arrow. So overall, another decent week. I think the double Arsenal clean sheet helped. So Raya 6, Gabriel 9. Big relief that Gabriel ended up starting, because essentially I had Rico Lewis and Greaves on the bench and none of them got any points. So that's a 9-point gift if Gabriel didn't start. So I took a little bit of a risk, but closer to the deadline there were some things of he's on the bus and things like that. So there was enough in there for me to not do any moves. And so I had 3 free transfers. So the only moves, if you remember, that I ended up doing were Mbumo out, which didn't necessarily work out, but I'm happy with it going forward, to Enzo, who got an assist, and then I got Trent in, who was disappointing, but it's a long-term move anyway. Talking of disappointing, Ait Nouri got his yellow card, so he was banned for the game. Then he converted the yellow into a red, so now he's banned for the game, but also back to 4 yellows. He's out of my team already. Spoiler alert, I've got Robinson for him, but he was fine. I think he got one clean sheet, couple of attacking returns in the period that I've had him. Not the end of the world. His fixtures were fine. Actually, Wolves' underlying data, for all the narratives of, oh, they're terrible, it's actually because the fixtures were so nice, their underlying data was actually not too bad. They were top 5 in terms of defense in the period where everybody jumped on Wolves players. Then this was a week where actually Saka, Palmer and Salah didn't do as well. So if the people who held Haaland, if Haaland went big, this was the week where they would have made some points. But as it happened, Haaland himself didn't do anything. So it actually was much of a muchness in terms of these guys. So happy to have Salah, Palmer, Saka, and now the golden boy Isak, which I've held for a while now, and I'm happy that people are that is the transfer in for a lot of people. He's just on fire. Like, he could have had a lot more points than the 11 points here that you see, and so happy to have him, and happy to have him very, very long term. Then João Pedro, disappointing. I think, look, there's a little bit of an extra narrative of him playing up top versus him playing in the number 10. I just think he's a good pick regardless. Like, be patient. He got one assist in the last game. He will get penalties. He will get attacking returns. They will come. Be patient. He's an excellent, excellent pick. A bit like Mbumo, right? People were losing patience with Mbumo, but in the last 2 weeks they decided that he's actually not bad at all. He does get 3 returns in 2 games, and now suddenly everybody's like, oh, maybe I should keep Mbumo. He's not a bad pick. João Pedro, much cheaper, but similar category. And then Cunha is an interesting one. Obviously, Cunha, again, a well-taken goal. As soon as he gets the goal, by far, he's on 3 bonus, so no doubts. As soon as he gets a return, he's been amazing to hold. Lucky with some of his returns. They've been, not in this case, I think it was a well-taken goal, but in other cases, he had a lot of shots outside the box, which turned into goals and things like that. Happy to have him, and as of recording, we have no idea whether he gets a ban or not. There was talk of basically Wolves having till end of today, which is, I'm recording Thursday night, that they had to respond. They probably have responded. There's some rumors that they will appeal. I think it makes sense to appeal, right? I mean, even if the ban is lengthened, the big game, the money game, is the Leicester game for Wolves. Not just for FPL managers, it's important for Wolves because it's a relegation battle. They probably will battle out between Southampton, Leicester, and Ipswich, and Wolves is the 4th. So why wouldn't you try to put out your best team and your best player in your team? Of course, if they can't help it, they can't help it. So when I talk about my team selection, I'll obviously talk about what happens with Cunha and what I'll do. But as I said, I've already done the Ait Nouri to Robinson transfer. So, coming to game week 17, I think let's look at projected goals. So I think this week is not the week to play around with captaincy. Like, for me, Salah is clear. Like, I just finished watching the Spurs Man United game, and Spurs are, man, they're open. Like their keeper is clueless. Their two centre backs, th- you won't have Romero and Van der Ven back as well for the Liverpool game. Maybe Udogi's back, so in this case they'll be slightly better. But still, man, I mean, I can, they're the highest for expected goals. Salah has a huge goal share. It just doesn't feel like a week that you have to go against Salah. Like they were, I think last 4 weeks I've captained Palmer in a row because there were reasons to do that, because it felt like either Liverpool had a difficult fixture, and so therefore Palmer had the better fixture, or maybe he was at home, his goal share was higher. In this case, the markets are telling you Liverpool should score the most goals. The models are telling you Liverpool should score the most goals. Salah should get the most points. The gut tells you Spurs away is, Palmer got his 18-point haul in that. Obviously, it included penalties, but there were goals in that game. So I just think, yeah, just Salah is the clear pick. Now, in terms of other picks, I think Fulham very high, of course, home to Southampton, but there is a new manager bounce expected. What does a new manager do when they take over a relegated team? First thing they do is basically try to sort out the back. Now, this narrative is completely sort of 180 degrees with Ruud van Nistelrooy, but with the new Southampton manager, there's a feeling like there will be a little bit of solidity that he will bring. Who is the guy who's been appointed? It will come to me. The name I can't think of the name. But what I did hear is basically he's a more defense-minded manager as well. Maybe even plays five at the back. I could be wrong. So Fulham's numbers are slightly a little bit one to see if these updated numbers are similar when they come out on a Saturday morning. Chelsea high again, and I think this will remain. Like Chelsea's attack is, in terms of underlying data, one of the best in the league, and they're showing it. And you have attackers in that team that are consistently getting the minutes. This is why people like Enzo, people like Palmer. If there was a nailed winger, whether that was Neto or Sancho or Madueke, they would be popular as well. It's just what it is. It's an attacking good team that are doing well. And then Newcastle. So these are the four big teams that I would think have good potential this week. But then even Man United, Arsenal, Brighton, these are okay numbers. Man City, decent numbers, over 1.75. So for attackers, I think this is, even though they're away games, taking into account the fact that they're away games, these are good numbers. So it's the clean sheets that are going to be dry this week. So, Fulham and Arsenal both on 38% clean sheet odds, which basically means that these are the only teams that have a small chance of a clean sheet, or small as in 38%. And then after that, it's a much of a muchness. So if you have gone for the Robinson move, now you see why this week it makes sense to do that. Arsenal, of course, are good. So you may say, oh, Crystal Palace away, people with triple Arsenal defense, they're going to concede. Well, they're the most likely not to. So whoever you have instead is more likely to concede than them. That's just how good Arsenal defense is at the moment. And this is consistent. And it will be consistent unless they play one of the Chelseas, the Spurs, or the Arsenals. And then Chelsea themselves, 34, then Newcastle 31. So if you have a Colwill, if you have a Lewis Hall, I think those are all playable picks. I think even Brentford 25%. Like, it's fine. What I mean is basically as your third defender or fourth defender, as your keeper, it doesn't matter too much. I don't think we'll see a lot of clean sheets this week because the good teams are away. So let's get to my team. So I'm going to keep this video short this week because there's a lot of stuff coming in. Tomorrow we'll find out more things about Cunha's ban and things like that. So I want to, and there's not too many decisions I have. So I'll talk about my team and I'll talk about some paths that I'm thinking about. So first, my team. So Raya in goal, playing Crystal Palace away, and Gabriel Crystal Palace away. I've just talked about that. Clean sheet odds are good. Robinson's clean sheet odds are good. So this is what I've done with 8 Nouri, straight to Robinson. And then I have Trent. So I'm not expecting much from Trent this week. But like I said, if your fourth defender is an attacking defender, could be Hall, could be anyone else, it's fine. So Trent could surprise. Liverpool could do well. Liverpool have traditionally done well, and I say traditionally, even this season, in terms of clean sheets against tougher opposition, especially in Europe, I remember. So it's fine. But Spurs, I expect to score. Spurs are a very, very attacking and a very good team in attack. Then Salah captain, as I mentioned, Saka and Palmer. I'm playing Enzo over Rodgers, even though, yes, there is a narrative Man City, away from home, they should concede. But then Enzo didn't play a minute today. He got a full rest in their whatever European competition they're in. And so I expect him to start. I expect him to get 90 minutes, so no reason for me to doubt that Enzo is a decent play this week. Cunha, obviously ban dependent, but if not, very happy to have him. Isak, very happy to have him. And João Pedro, very happy to have him. So quite simply put, if there is nothing with Cunha's ban this week, there is absolutely no need for me to do anything with this team. Carry the free transfer again to the next week, and then with 2 free transfers, a lot of new paths open up. So let me talk about those paths now. So actually, going back to my team, what I want to basically say is there's players here that should stay in my team barring an injury for the foreseeable future. I could even say as long as maybe the wildcard. And so I'm talking about Raya, Gabriel, Trent, Salah, Saka, Palmer, Isak, João Pedro. I'm not going to touch Greaves and Fabianski, only because they're decent picks anyway. So that's 10 picks that I've just talked about. Then there are 3 picks that basically I want to play around with, which are basically Rico Lewis, Rogers, and Cunha. You can also say Robinson is fine. I don't need to do much with that spot now that they have good long-term fixtures. So basically it's 3 problem places in my team that I would like to fix. So these are Rico Lewis, Rogers, and Cunha. The first thing I could do is basically on the right, I've given you 4 options of the 4 things that I'm thinking about. Ideally, I do nothing this week and then all of them happen next week. But then I have to think about what if Cunha is banned tomorrow. So I'll start with D, actually, the bottom one, which is basically the one that I might be forced to do even this week. So if I'm forced to do a move this week, then I like Raul Jimenez or Chris Wood as the single transfer that I will do. Because it does a couple of things. If I go for Raul Jimenez, even though there is uncertainty with whether he plays 3 games in a row, is he saved for Chelsea, will he get the Southampton at home game, I think what it does is structurally, I still feel Raul Jimenez gives me 4 out of 5 starts. And so if that's the case, I still like him. Probably, could be on penalties. Fulham have good fixtures. Same reason why people got Robinson. But it enables for me next week, instead of Rodgers, I can go up to a Jota, who has home to Leicester. So if I went for a Raul Jimenez this week, I'm giving myself the option that if the minutes look good, if let's say Jota ends up even starting, gets 55 minutes this weekend against Spurs, I like it. Then it's looking like a good start against Leicester. Let's say he's building up his fitness, doesn't start, but still comes on at halftime or something. So I want to leave the door open that if a Jota punt becomes available for Leicester at home on Boxing Day, I have the fund. So Raul Jimenez appeals from that point of view. And if Jota punt is not available, Eze is right there. This was always the path, if you remember, Game Week 12, Game Week 13. I was thinking about getting a Crystal Palace pick because their fixtures become good. I could go for an Eze even from Game Week 18, maybe even Game Week 19. So that basically gives me a structure where I have Isak, João Pedro, Raul Jimenez, 3 decent strikers, Saka, Palmer, Salah, Enzo, and a Jota or an Eze. So I like structure D from a structure point of view, where I've basically spread out the money a little bit, where my midfield isn't very, very weak, where a lot of people I see are with Saka, Salah, Palmer, and then 2 cheapos. I feel like in that case, it becomes a little bit inflexible because some bandwagons emerge. There will be a bandwagon that will emerge at 6.5 to 7 million. So I'm basically structurally moving towards that with a punt on Jota if it works out. If it works out, if it doesn't, if it doesn't. The second option, which is option C here, is basically I call it the boring, meh kind of path, which maybe the sensible path is basically if I'm forced into move this week or next week, I just get Chris Wood. Chris Wood is on penalties. Nottingham Forest are doing well. They're 4th in the table. It's just a sensible move. And then for the Rodgers slot, I could even leave Rodgers. I don't need to do anything. Or I could open up and do a Sarr punt in Game Week 19, because Sarr has played 90 minutes in the last 2 games, where in fact it's Mateta and Eze who've come off before the 60th minute. Whether that's because of injury, whether that's because of game state, I have 2 weeks to monitor. So I can go for a Chris Wood for Cunha, and then that Rodgers slot, I have $1 million in the bank. I can go up to Sarr, I can do something with that, or I can do nothing with it. I don't have to. In all these parts, basically, Rico Lewis is becoming Munoz in Game Week 19. So actually that is the common thread. And why am I still holding on to Rico Lewis? There is a little bit of hope because I have Robinson this week, who plays home to Southampton. Next week he has Chelsea. So I don't mind having Rico Lewis starting home to Everton, especially because it's the early kickoff. If we get news he's starting, I'm very happy to have him. And if he's not starting, then I could just go for Munoz earlier. So that's why Munoz is in there in all these options. He's coming in. like unless anything changes injury-wise in my team and my path itself changes, Munoz is coming game week 19, and the defense will look like Munoz, Robinson, Gabriel, Trent. And I play 3 of those guys every week. Some weeks I could even play all 4 and not play an Enzo or somebody, or if there's an injury. It just makes the squad very robust. So, I talked about the exciting Jota punt, that is option D. I talked about the more boring, sensible Chris Wood, and then keeping an optionality for a SAR type punt in game week 19. Let's talk about option B, which is basically the other Crystal Palace punt. So you could go for an Ahmad. So let's say this week, if Cunha is banned, and I don't want to get rid of Cunha because I still want to keep my options open. Ahmad looks great. Ahmad again scored tonight. He didn't start. And so I again caution people, in the next 3 game weeks, there is a possibility he doesn't start all 3. But that's fine. Doesn't matter. He's 5 million. He's still doing a lot for that money, or whatever. He's 5.3, 5.4 now. Still, he's very cheap. And it's okay. If you wanted to get him home to Bournemouth, I could just bench Cunha and then deal with him after. And then ideally, I would get Mateta in game week 18 or game week 19. I'm a little hesitant to commit to this path this week, only because of I'm not convinced yet on Mateta. I'm not convinced if that's the pick that I want to get from Crystal Palace. So, in effect, if I go for the Ahmad pick, I'm almost committing to a Mateta pick, or I could even go down to a Wood. So, it's not the end of the world, but it's an option that I'm considering. Ideally, like I said, I don't have to do it this week, and then I consider it next week when I see one more week of Mateta, where I see one more week of what Ahmad does, or Sar does, or Wood does, Jota does. So, all these are path dependent. I want to learn more stuff in the next week. And then option A is the one I like the least. But look, the reality is that Jackson is a very, very good pick. And even though he's on 4 yellows, if you're looking at strikers right now, it's Isak, Jackson as basically one tier, and then everybody else is the next tier. And so if there is a possibility to get to a Jackson, I want to leave that option open. So I could do basically Rogers to Dibbling and basically do Cunha to Jackson. Why would I do Dibbling? That's where I'm uncomfortable, because then it would leave me with Enzo and Dibbling as the two midfielders, which are 4th and 5th. I would only play one of them, probably Enzo most weeks. Some weeks I could play bench both of them and play 4 at the back with Munoz and Robinson. So it is something I could consider, but I don't love it. Like, I don't love having Perma play Enzo or Dibbling, or at least semi-Perma play Enzo and Dibbling. But it could work out. Maybe in the new manager system, Dibbling is playing up top, or we something different. We never know. So I wanted to show that as an output. So like I said, if Cunha's ban is confirmed, I will be in option C, B, C, or D. I won't go A because that will need a hit. So that's why you see the game week 17s there in B, C, and D. Ideally, I do nothing, and then between B, C, and D, I decide next week on where I want to go. And I know myself, if Jota looks very, very appealing as a punt, I'm very tempted by D. But then also, if Ahmad continues to look like he does, if Mateta's, he scored in the midweek, if he still continues to do well, then even option B is very tempting. So between B and D, right now I'm tempted. But then knowing me, the boring, sensible Pras, I might actually end up doing C. So we will see. Nothing else that I wanted to share with you guys. I really hope that I don't have to do anything this week and I can leave this team as it is because I'm happy with it. And then we will take it from there. And I will see you guys on maybe Sunday night after the games are done with my next team selection video. And that will be before Christmas, so I don't need to wish you a Merry Christmas now. But enjoy the weekend, enjoy Game Week 17, and I will see you very soon.